After Roger Corey, that's the second largest applause we've had tonight. Well done. Well done, Raj. Great job. Cael, you get to this point in the season. How do you want to handle this? How are you handling this particular week and the transition between the end of a dual meet with Edinburgh and with the Big Tens coming up?
Yeah, we just want to make sure that our kids know that we're ready to go and that we're confident and most of the work's been done, so now it's just about just getting ready to compete. And I think this group is very, very competitive. We've talked about that over the years, and the bigger the match, the more excited they are. So yeah, it's more about just kind of leading in that final link to where they can just kind of trust what they've been doing and themselves and just know they're ready to go, which they are.
Right. It doesn't mean there haven't been challenges along the way. Part of the challenges that you've had to deal with this year as a team and the staff is illness, and also along the way, guys will get bumped up. What has that done to test the depth of the team because you battled through a series of illnesses this year?
Yeah, we have. I feel like every year you have something, and every week when you're preparing for a duel, the season goes fast because you're just trying to get ready for that match, and you have kids that maybe aren't competing for whatever reason. Maybe they're sick or they're not feeling great or they're injured or something, but that's just, I feel like that's the way it is every year, and it just still comes down to if you want to do well at the Big Ten or the national tournament, you still just have to compete well in the big rounds and win the big matches. It always comes down to that. So just making sure our guys are just know that that's when we are at our best. And even if we aren't, if they think we are, then it works out sometimes.
A guy like Aaron Brooks had to change weight classes, moved up to 197. So for the most part, it's a new set of opponents, challenges that go with it. What's important when a guy makes a move like that, and how has he handled it compared to maybe some other people have over time?
Yeah, we've had a lot of success with our guys moving up weight classes. Aaron's done really well, and he just has his body. He can just kind of blow up in a good way, just get big and strong really easily. So he'd been talking about moving up to 197 for a few years, so it wasn't really much of a surprise. But he's done really well, and he's been dominant up to this point. But you got to just finish strong, and there's still a lot of great wrestlers in the weight class. So he's just got to be himself. But he's done a really good job. I mean, he still has to be disciplined and work hard to get his weight down before his matches. So I think that you just see that a lot with kids, regardless of what weight they are. It seems to be difficult for them to make weight.
Is there a challenge because it's new opponents, like he doesn't have a previous scouting report on guys just because he hasn't wrestled them that often? And what does that take to then come up with your game plan versus their game plan with somebody you don't know?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's that's exciting. I think that's fun for athletes to move into different weight classes, and because he'd wrestled the same guys at the lower weight, and one of the more familiar opponents has moved up also. So,
right.
But I think it's fun for them. I think there's unique challenges in wrestling new opponents, and there are challenges in wrestling the same person over and over again, right? So. But we just try to focus and get them to focus more on what they do and just trying to improve and not worry so much about winning the next match, but trying to just keep getting better, so they can try to separate themselves from their opponents.
What have you seen in Bo Bartlett's progression year to year as to where he is now?
Yeah, he's been fun to watch. He's just his confidence and just the way he learns and he does things. He's obviously a really good kid and a great leader, just always smiling, one of those guys. But yeah, just watching him improve every year it's been fun as a coach. He's definitely a student of the game, and everybody's unique, everybody's different. But he's he's definitely, you can see pretty clear progress in what he's doing and what he has done. But he's been wrestling really great this year.
I mean, everybody's on their own clock as to when everything kicks in. When did you start to sense and see in him that things were really kicking in for him?
Well, I think from the beginning, he kind of filled in because of the COVID and everything. He jumped up and was wrestling 149, and he didn't weigh 149 back then. And but you would still see just really outstanding things, and he was in the match with everybody. And last year you saw him take a jump, and then he had a fantastic national tournament where he finished third and did it dominantly, coming back through the consolation. I think that just gave him a lot of confidence, but just little things with technique, because he's extremely athletic, and when action takes place, whether it's his opponent or his, he generally comes out on top. So he's just a guy you want to see engage as much as possible, and just he's great at landing like a cat in scrambles, and his bottom position's gotten a lot better this year, which I think gives him more confidence to take more risks on his feet too.
Yeah. Where did you see the improvement from year to year in Levi Haynes?
I think Levi. He started out strong for us last year. We were just kind of playing with getting him in the lineup, and really my concerns with him was just is the weight class, is it too low for him? You don't know, is he still growing? Where is he gonna end up? But he's really disciplined, and he's done a great job with his weight, and it hasn't been an issue. He was just very just poised and did a great job last year. National runner-up as a true freshman. This year he started out a little slow because he kind of got hurt early in the season, and it took him a little time. And I think he was maybe trying to be perfect in how he was wrestling instead of just getting out there and hustling. But he's been wrestling really, really well, especially the last I'd say since the Christmas break, which gave him some time to get healthy. But he just keeps getting better. He's just got that mentality, and he's a competitor.
What do you think some of the lessons that Braden Davis has learned to this point?
Well, I think he's just come a long way. He's just a scrappy kid. He kind of started the season out strong, and we were obviously excited about what he's doing and what he is doing and what he's capable of. But I think he had a couple losses there late. But I think when you're a true freshman, that experience is really, really helpful. And I think he was probably feeling and had some pressure on him. And he's another guy who's got to be really disciplined in managing his weight, and that makes a big difference how he competes when he does things the right way. So, but I think he's really excited about the postseason here, and that's a weight class where, really whoever just goes out there and, it's the same with every weight class, right? Whoever scores the most points wins. But he can be right in the money there, right in the mix as a true freshman. That's got to be really exciting for him. It's exciting for us.
Cael, you've got a little time between now and the Big Tens, and people, of course, want to know what that can mean for somebody like Carter Storaci.
He has a little extra time, and then another week between the Big Ten and the Nationals, so he has some time to get healthy. But he's doing pretty well. I'd say he's doing better than we feared right away, and he's in really good hands with our trainer Dan Monthly. So, like I've said, we're very optimistic, and Carter's just a tough kid. He's had adversity in every season. Injuries has been a big part of his career, unfortunately, even in high school. He was a little under the radar even then because he wasn't dominating on the scoreboard, but a lot of times he was also injured. So he's a tough kid, and he's dealt with some adversity in the past. So if anybody can do it, he can.
You brought up Dan Monthly. Trainers do so much work. How invaluable has he been to the program year after year?
Yeah, he's spot on. He's when we're on the mat, what he says, I trust him 100%. always been right on the money as far as like diagnosing some kind of an injury, a knee or a shoulder, and whether the kid can continue or not. And he's good too. Sometimes I look at him and ask him if we should throw the brick or not, because he knows better than we do. Because we're more emotional, we kind of see what we want to see, where he can sit back there and be like, yeah, no, don't throw the brick. I'm like, all right, give me that brick back.
Aaron Cael, it looks like he's become better on his feet. What has he done to make himself better when he's in that neutral spot?
Yeah, he's just very athletic and extremely fast. I mean, if you watch him wrestle, he's darting around. I think the more time we have with him, I think he can be a very, very dominant college wrestler. He's one of those guys, too, that's been dealing with sickness, and it's kind of been multiple things in a row for him. But he's really excited here about the postseason, and he's a big match. Like, he'll be a gamer. He's ready to go. But just as good a kid as they get, does everything you ask him to do, works really hard, very disciplined, and he's got a lot of skills. So I wouldn't count him out of anything. I know he's had a couple losses in the last couple months, but he's going to be good to go.
Richard Messenbrink, boy, you talk about bringing energy to the table. What do you like about that energy part of it, and are there times where he needs to channel it?
Yeah, I'm fine with him not channeling it.
Good. Good.
Yeah, we love his energy. He's the same all the time. He comes into our offices a lot during the day and just kind of hangs out and talks, and just high energy, very happy person. And anyone that you have around that's got that good positive energy, it's just good for everybody. He's a great example, and I've heard some of the kids on our team say, "Hey, I want to wrestle like that guy," and some of them it hasn't really worked out for him too well. So we're saying, hey, you just wrestle like what you do, and we'll work on that in the off season. But yeah, Mitchell.
So those are the ones you're telling you need to channel it.
Yeah. But yeah, he's awesome. He loves wrestling. He loves competing, and he's constantly trying to get better, and he's just a kid that grew up wanting to come to Penn State too. So it's fun to have kids like that in your program.
No question. Greg Kirkfleet at heavyweight. Even in subtle improvements, what are you seeing with him?
He's ready. I tell him all the time he's the best heavyweight in the world, and I believe that. I have to get thrown around by him sometimes. But he's wrestling great. He can kind of do what he wants to do. He's confident in his conditioning. He's good on top, bottom, neutral. So just a great athlete. He has a ton of experience, and so hopefully he can end the season where he wants to be, and that's as the national champ.
Bernie Truax, as his time has gone, what have you seen as he's fought his way through a couple of ups and downs and a couple of very close matches that have gone both ways?
Yeah, I think Bernie's another one of those kids. He's just a great kid, and he's happy to be here. You see him smiling all the time, and I mean, even from the beginning, he's kind of said, "I'm a guy who, I kind of peak at the NCAA tournament. I get everything lined up for that, but yeah, he's wrestled great. I mean, he's had a couple losses, but that's sometimes that happens. I mean, we've had some guys that. We just have a really good team, and I think he's picking up a lot of energy around those guys around him, the Carter and Aaron being after him, and Messenbrink and everyone else. Levi, I mean, that's a pretty good little row of wrestlers there. So I think he's feeding off of them and gives him confidence. I think but he's always done really well and kind of peaked at the end of the season, and that's something that gives him confidence.
Do you recruit a transfer the same way, the same method as you do as somebody who's a senior or junior senior in high school, or is there a different way of talking to a transfer when they're thinking about coming here?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think, for us in just recruiting in general, I think you just try to be really transparent and honest and see, hey, this is what we offer, and these are the guys we have. I mean, more for the transfers, they're coming in with maybe one year. Aaron and Mitchell, have multiple years, but a guy like Bernie has 1 year, and I think when somebody looks at our lineup and they think, hey, I can wrestle for Penn State at this weight. That's kind of what we had, and those guys. So I think the key is just being honest with the kids and just kind of just walking them through it and what's important to you and what you're looking for. Is this a good fit? Because even in recruiting, I feel like over the years, you just want to get the kids that want to be here. If you have to spend just endless amounts of time trying to convince somebody to come to school here, they usually doesn't always end up working out. Sometimes it does. But we've had cases where it doesn't. So and our kids that really want to come here are the ones that end up doing the best for us.
I mean, I know you're locked in on the Big Tens, that I understand, but I'm going to ask one final question. It's about the U.S. Olympic trials. What does it mean to get the U.S. Olympic trials here for the community and also for what you're doing in Nittany Lion Wrestling?
We're excited about the trials. It's been many years in the works. We had them before when they were canceled because of COVID, but we have several athletes that'll be competing there. Some of our college kids, and the United States in freestyle wrestling right now is just really good.
Yeah.
So it's going to be a great show, and it's going to be very competitive. Obviously, I don't look at it as let's go have a good time. I just want our guys to make the team.
Yeah. Right.
And because you just know how important it is. It only comes around every 4 years, and so it's one of those things you just got to go get it. It's the shot. It's do or die kind of a thing. Try to present that in a more positive way, but it's just the way it is. You either get it or you don't. So you hope that your guys show up and wrestle at their best.
Steve, it's good to be with you. Spring practice, March Madness right around the corner, and of course Big Ten wrestling and NCAA wrestling, and even the PAA state championships now on deck. So it's a great time of year, and I'm glad to be here chatting about it with you.
All right, so let's start with the wrestling part of it. The key is to get 10 through so you can take the full team to Kansas City. As you analyze the Big Ten and analyze Penn State, especially what they did down the stretch, what do you place the odds at of getting all 10 through?
Yeah, to me, it's pretty, you never say never. Someone could get hurt, something could happen. But between the number of allocated bids the Big Ten gets and the number of at-large that exists for guys who do not get an allocated bid, it's 99.99999%. I mean, if you look at the pre-speeds that came out earlier this week, there's not a weight class where Penn State does not have a wrestler safely within that allocation number that they stretch anywhere from the Big Ten sends 11 141-pounders to NCAAs to they send 7 in a couple of different weight classes, mostly ones that Penn State is favored to win titles at. So I would say, you never say never about anything, but certainly we know how successful this Penn State wrestling team is. And when you combine that with the way the qualification process works, it's about as close to a guarantee as you can get.
Were there any even subtle surprises in the pre-seeds to you?
No, not really. I mean, I think when you look down this list, there was a question, and not really much of one, about whether Dean Hamidi of Wisconsin or Mitchell Messenbrink of Penn State would be the 1 seed at 165 pounds. Hamidi's been ahead of Messenbrink in the rankings and for almost the entirety of, I guess, all of the season. So there was no real shock there. Of course, Messenbrink ends up at number 2. Braden Davis is at number 6 at 125 pounds. Again, we talked the last time I was on your show, but just the craziness of 125 pounds and some of the struggles he had in February, I think that's a logical spot for him to have ended up. And the same thing, Tyler Case at number 4 at 149, Aaron McGowan at number 5 at 133. Could you quibble with it? Yeah, probably. But at the end of the day, I think Penn State probably is about where they expected to be at the 10 spots going into the weekend. There's still a chance for those to be tweaked before the official brackets come out Friday afternoon. I'm pretty sure they'll stay pretty exactly as is unless there's changes somewhere else in the conference, someone drops out, so on and so forth. But, yeah, all told, no, not really. I think it's probably about where most people expected Penn State's wrestlers to end up.
And, of course, there will be the mystery surrounding Carter Starachi. How intrigued are you by that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's any choice but to be, making that the focal point of Penn State's weekend there, fairly or not. There's no doubt that what he does in Maryland is going to change the outcome of that weight class, both, at Big Tens and at Nationals. Clearly, if he's healthy and he can wrestle the whole way through, he'll be more than the odds-on favorite to win the Big Ten title and the NCAA title. But, Cael Sanderson talking on Monday of this week saying that his mission is still to, seek and destroy, if you will, his opponents, and that he's going to go compete, and then it's on the coaching staff to make sure that if he by doing so is putting himself in any position to, risk further injury or just wrestle in a way that is not up to his capabilities, that they need to step in and, make sure that they're protecting him. So we'll see. That you can interpret all of that, he said on Monday, in a number of different ways. There's a few options here. He, of course, could step on the mat for 2 matches, forfeit after a second of each of those matches. That would qualify him for the NCAA tournament, eliminate him from Big Tens after just 2 matches, which would drop his seat at NCAA. It's not a huge deal, though, for a wrestler of his caliber. Obviously, want the number 1 seed. That's the what everyone strives for. But if he got to nationals and by doing that at Big Tens allowed him to be at his best at nationals, he'd be quite okay. So that's option 1. That's option 2. Option 1 would be to be healthy enough to wrestle his way through the tournament and win the Big Ten title, as he's expected to do all season prior to suffering an injury at Edinburgh. That'd be 1. Stepping on the mat twice and then moving on would be 2. And then a third option, of course, would be similar to what Jason Mills did a handful of years ago and wrestle through to maybe through the quarterfinals, maybe get to the semifinals, and then say, okay, I've gone far enough here. I'm going to take the rest of this tournament off and the week leading up to nationals, week and a half, to get healthy. So Penn State has options, and I think at this point you trust Cael Sanderson, Cody Sanderson, Casey Cunningham, and obviously Dan Musley, the trainer, and Carter Starachi, the competitor, to put themselves and him in the best position to be at his best at nationals. So whatever track they choose to take, it will be with that in mind.
Can he step on the mat once default and get an at-large?
The rules are a little bit murky, but the way I read them is that he has to do that twice. So he'd have to do it he'll get a bye in the first round by being the number 1 seed. So he would have to do that once in the quarterfinals and then once in his first consolation bracket match.
Okay. Well, it's an interesting mystery to have going in, without question. Look, you saw I realize tournament wrestling is different than dual meet wrestling. But my goodness, Greg, the possibility is there that at the end of the semifinals in Kansas City, they'll have it wrapped up. That's just the way this team is.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy to think that could be the case even without Shane Van Ness, of course, the former All-American who was injured for the year back in the 2023 portion of the schedule. Tyler Kasich, freshman, stepped in for him and has competed pretty well, hit some bumps here in February, as did a couple other guys. But, yeah, you look at the way things stand, and even without him, that's the case. I know at the beginning of the year, a lot of the talk was about could they break the all-time scoring record. Obviously tougher to do without a former All-American and with the questions surrounding Starachi's health at this point. I think that's not as much of a talking point, but that's not really what Penn State set out to do. They set out to win as many national titles or finish as high on the podium as possible if they aren't competing for a national title, and, of course, to win it overall as a team. So, putting all that aside, yeah, there's no question it can be wrapped up either at the semifinals on Friday night or, as early as the middle of the consolation round on Saturday morning. So either way, Penn State goes to Kansas City in 2 weeks as a prohibitive favorite to win yet another national title. And, I think that the good thing for the sports team, we talked about this a little bit before the Iowa match, but, unlike years past, even if Penn State is seen as and rightly so, as an enormous favorite for NCAA's, good luck trying to pick 2 through 6, 2 through 7. It's a very competitive race for the runner-up spot, which of course nobody wants, but in terms of watching competitive action following that throughout the course of this tournament, if and when Penn State wraps things up, whenever it does, that is going to be something I think fans will be able to keep an eye on, even if they're rooting only for Penn State, because there's going to be a lot of great competition both at Maryland for Big Tens and also in Kansas City for nationals.
One more part on wrestling, then we'll turn our attention someplace else. I was talking to a long-time donor, and a long-time friend on Thursday night over when we were doing the coaches show, and Cael was on the show. And he looked at me and he said, "You know what? I'm around this all the time, every day." He said, "Even I pinch myself and can't believe this on a year in and year out basis. You cover it all the time. You have a level of neutrality to it. Can you believe this on a day in, day out, month in, month out, and year in and year out basis?"
I think you can, just because what Cael Sanderson and his staff have done year after year after year after year. But I think you do sometimes take a step back and realize how special what Penn State has and will continue to do in the sport of college wrestling is. I mean, every year you go into a season where you're losing multiple time, either national champions or one-time national champions, multi-time All-Americans. You have freshmen in the lineup. You're dealing with injuries. You have backups in, and it just doesn't matter. I mean, I think one of the most special things, and it doesn't necessarily relate to the success, but it certainly is part of the reason they're so strong year after year after year, is that at least as of now, they are not a program that has been hurt by the transfer portal. And you look at some of these guys like a Terrell Barraclough, like a David Evans,
Right.
like a Lucas Cochran. I mean, I have a hard time believing they could not find a starting spot and a path to compete at these postseason events somewhere else, but they have no interest in pursuing that. You have had some guys. Michael Beard obviously went to down. I'm blanking here. Michael Beard moved on, and he is competing with Greg Kirkley for blocking him out. Seth Neville's at Maryland left. Same deal there. Max Dean was Beard, and Greg Kirkfleet was Seth Neville's. But when you look at it, and they don't lose guys very often to the portal, and that's a part of the reason why that room is so strong. I mean, you look back at some of these matches, you have backup guys coming in and beating ranked wrestlers, like we saw at the Rutgers match at the Bryce Jordan Center. So it's just year after year, guy after guy. It doesn't matter how much lineup turnover they have. It doesn't matter what kind of adversity they deal with. Somebody else just steps in, and because of the way, obviously they're naturally gifted as athletes, that's why they're in that room to begin with, but because of the way they are prepared and coached, it just keeps turning over year after year after year. And it is special, and something I think fans should step back and think about from time to time, because it's just not something you see or will always see, again.
Yeah, I did say after I think it was after Rutgers, where they had to go deep into the lineup. I mean, Barraclough didn't even wrestle at his weight class, for goodness sakes, and won. And I said it reminded me of the stories. And believe it or not, Greg, I was not alive in the late 40s, okay? When they used to say after World War II, Notre Dame, because of those returning from war, the second team gave the first team of Notre Dame the most competition it had all the way through. I said, I wonder if you can say the same thing. I wonder where the second unit of Penn State wrestling would be ranked in the top 10. I mean, seriously.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a fascinating thing to consider, because you're right. I mean, I think more often than not in every case, but more often than not, these guys are seeing the best competition, excuse me, they're going to face in the room, because keep in mind, you don't just have the college age wrestlers that are in there. You have the Nittany Lion Wrestling Club practicing with these guys too, guys who are multi-time All-Americans, in some case gold medal Olympians. So, there's so much talent in that room that, I would say, maybe not every case up and down all 10 weight classes, but a darn near a majority of them, if not all of them. You have guys that, are seeing in the practice room better than what they're going to see on the mat, whether it's in the dual season or the postseason.
In football, with practice starting next Tuesday, what are a couple of, on your list, interesting items you're looking to see as this progresses?
Yeah, so, of course, with all three coordinators being new, and they're not going to have any great interest in showing, I was writing this today for something that will run at Blue White Illustrated later this week, but, if you're coming to the blue-white game and you're expecting to see this brand new, all this creativity and stuff that we've talked about with Andy Koltanecki over the last however many months since it's been hired, you're going to be disappointed. Don't keep that stuff under wraps, of course, but just interested to see, number one, on the field, some of the leadership qualities that guys have talked about over the last couple of months, Steve, how they play out during practices at the blue-white game. That's obviously one thing this Penn State team will have to replace, is some leaders from the team a year ago. So that's one thing that'll be at front and center. Obviously, the biggest talking point, I think, at least early on, is going to be getting a look at Abdul Carter at defensive end, where he's listed now on the roster, and getting some insight from James Franklin and others on how Tom Allen envisions that going. So that'll be a big talking point. And then, I'm not sure you could tell me, but I'm not sure you're allowed to do a radio interview about Penn State and not talk about the receivers. So we'll touch on them for a second. But, Julian Fleming in that room now. Yeah. Obviously, you have some returners back and guys that, and Keandre Lambert-Smith and Trey Wallace and some others that are looking to really take that next step. So that's going to be a big talking point of the spring, too. So I think it's interesting. It's a very interesting spring. The offensive line has great competition. There's fun competition at the defensive end and defensive tackle spots, even in rotation roles. You're not going to find out who the new kicker is going to be this spring, I don't think, but that's something that we'll be talking about with Justin Lustig from time to time. So obviously this is a team that, depending on who you're looking at, is ranked anywhere from inside the top 10 to right inside the top 15. So high expectations, but plenty to discuss. There's key returners at a number of spots, and we all know who those are. But I think in spring, some of the most interesting stuff to follow is how these either new guys or younger guys are stepping in and either earning roles or maybe not getting to that part, a part of the depth chart that we expected them to as quickly as expected. So it's going to be fun. I can't believe that spring is here. Spring practice is here, and that we're talking about postseason wrestling as well. I'm not sure where the first 2 months went of this year, but we're here. And I think for Penn State, listening to Chuck Losey talk last week, it sounds like they had a good winter workout session, which of course every program's going to say they do. But you saw some of that leadership stuff pop up during that session that was open to reporters last week, and we're going to see more of that in the weeks and months ahead leading into the blue-white game. So there'll be a lot to talk about. You
did a reference in the open, just to let you know that I was listening, about the PIAAs. Anything of interest that you want to drop in about the PIAAs that you're looking at?
Yeah, so there's a few commits that'll be on hand, a few targets. I mean, I think if you want to combine the most relevant thing as it relates to combining football and wrestling together, Caleb Brewer, the class of 2024 signee out of Wyoming, is going to be on the mat. He qualified for the state tournament at the Class 2A level, so he'll be competing starting tomorrow morning in Hershey, and I think that is obviously, how far he can go. We'll have to wait and see. He's ranked 10th right now in PA at that weight by Flow Wrestling. Certainly, I think he got a good draw to go as far as he can. He's going to run into the number one guy in the semifinals in all likelihood. But, I think he could have enrolled early, and they elected not to simply because he wanted to chase, a final, have a final chance to win a PWA state championship in wrestling. So he's had a good season to date. And we'll see how that goes. Asher Cunningham's a State College native, tremendous wrestler at the Class 3A level. He's going to be competing, one of the commits, that is on hand, one of a handful. So, yeah, we'll have complete coverage of that as well. But certainly you have some football flavor down there. You obviously have some wrestling flavor down there. And you have guys going for state medals before they head to State College here in a couple months.
Greg, you do a brilliant job of covering it all. Thanks so much for the time you gave us today. Really appreciate it.
Always a pleasure, Steve. See you soon. Have a good day.